guessed it, it's like it's got politics, it's got magic. We're following this one person as he's growing up. This should be amazing. No, skipping a miss for me. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and we're at that time again where I've accumulated enough books that I haven't enjoyed, wouldn't reread, that it's time to do an unhaul. To be honest, this unhaul would have been a lot bigger, but because I did do books that I'm giving to my sister at the end of May, those kind of took out a lot of the books that would be in this. I tend to try and do an unhaul about once every 6 months or so because I'm quite strict. I only keep the ones that I really enjoy or that I would reread. If it doesn't fit those two categories, then away they go. But I think that's enough. We all know what an unhaul is, so let's just get to it. So the first one is Captain Corelli's Mandolin by Louis de Bernières. This is one that I've had ever since my GCSEs, but I've never reread it since then. And I liked it. And I mean, it is filled with my annotations from school and everything. I don't think I'm ever gonna reread this one. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's been quite a few years and I've not picked it up since, and I just don't think I'm going to. So yeah, I think that one can go. Oh, I didn't even say what this is about. So this is about Captain Corelli. He is a young Italian officer posted in the Greek island, and it's kind of like a love story and also dealing with the effects of war and everything in there. It does sound lovely, but in all honesty, I know I'm never going to reread this, and there's no point in me keeping hold of it for years knowing that I'm never going to reread this one. So then we have Dot Hutchinson's The Butterfly Garden. This was a really sinister read, all about this girl who's being interviewed by police because she's actually escaped from somewhere that she was being held captive in this place where there are lots of other girls that have also been held captive. And the reason why it's called the Butterfly Garden is because they have all had massive butterfly wings tattooed onto their backs by this really quite unsettling man. It's really creepy, but do I think I'm ever going to reread this? Probably not. Then we have another classic that I just did not get on with and I actually DNF, and that's John Cleland's Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure, also known as Fanny Hill. So it has two different titles that have been printed, and I just didn't enjoy this one. It was very much just like a smut fest central with no plot, and no offense, but I don't want to read that, so no. Then we have a thriller, which is Blood Orange by Harriet Tice, and this was okay, but it's not one that I'm gonna gravitate towards. To be honest, I rarely keep thrillers. In fact, actually, apart from like one, I don't really keep thrillers. Murder mysteries I will keep because I like those, they're comforting, they're a fun time. Thrillers are something that I'll read the once and then that's it. This one is all about Alison. She's a lawyer and her career's on the rise, but there's a lot of family trouble at home, and that's it really. I mean, it's a little bit dark, a little bit twisted, there are a few twists and turns that it takes, but nothing memorable. And then we have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and this is one that I contemplated keeping, but I also know I'm never going to reread this one. This is a book that I would say that this thriller I really liked. I might actually see if my mum would like it. This was just different and I liked the twist at the end. We're following Jules Larson, who gets this amazing opportunity to be a house sitter paying an extortionate amount of money. However, of course, it's too good to be true. Loved the twist at the end of this. Riley Sager, again, I've tried a couple, but I don't always get on with their books, and I just think thriller isn't for me. It's an okay, as I've said, it's an okay read, but they're never that memorable. But yeah, I might see if my mum wants that one, if not, charity shop. Okay, I have lots of these books in this, and this is part of the series that started with Damn Fair by Barb and JC Hendy. I picked these all up for super cheap because I thought I would reread the first two and then get into the series again. However, I'm just not enjoying it, and I'm out of love with this sort of fantasy anyway. I know I'm not going to read it anytime soon, and I just think there's a lot of new fantasy books and just new books in general coming out that I'm so much more invested in. Plus the second book, which I'll talk more about when I get to it, I DNF. Okay, then we have Grady Hendrix, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and this one I was really disappointed in. I thought it would be more of an actual vampire slaying storyline, but it was actually a lot more focused on the fact that we're in this small American town and the women are constantly oppressed by their husbands and been like, you have to stay at home, you have to keep this pristine house, don't argue with us, don't do these things, and I don't want to read about that. In all honesty, it wasn't for me. And even the ending where the vampire stuff actually starts happening, it was so outlandish and ridiculous, and I didn't enjoy this one. I was just frustrated the whole way through because of the men in this book, and it's just like, you know what? Some people absolutely love this book. It just was a miss for me. Then we have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Hilarious Inez. And this one I liked. It was an okay cutesy read. It's a YA, more contemporary romance. However, I have heard since then that there's been a lot about the actual author being transphobic, and I don't want to be supporting all of that, and to be quite honest, I don't think I'm ever going to reread this one or pick up the next book anyway, so I'm fine with unhauling it. And the fact that I then learn all of that, it's just like, you know what, I'm okay to not keep you. But this one is about Dante and Aristotle, which I got really excited before I read this, thinking it was going to be more a historical retelling with these two people, obviously not same time periods and stuff, but just some sort of fantastical historical. That no, this is a contemporary romance, and it's just those people that are called Aristotle and Dante, but they both struggle with fitting in. They're both half Mexican American, and like there was good representation in that. It's then just so disappointing that things have come out about the author. And then we have The Dinner Guest by BP Walter, and this one is again another sort of thriller book. I was a bit disappointed because I thought it was going to be more murder mystery, especially because it does focus on the fact that there's 4 people walked into the dining room, one would never leave. You have the 4 different people, except you already know pretty much who's killed them anyway. There's not really a mystery. It missed. I didn't enjoy this one. I found it really boring, and I kept reading it because it is a need read. Again, thrillers, they're easy reads. Maybe it's just I'm not picking up the right ones, but this one I really went in expecting more of an actual murder mystery, kind of like a Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes whodunit, and nope, not at all. And then we have a book that might surprise a few people, and that's Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Now, I know Robin Hobb is a massive fantasy author, however, I was bored reading this one, and I've been told by everyone, yeah, but that's the way it is with her books. Like, this is the shortest one, the next books are massive, and it's always the first 200-300 pages are boring and slow, but then it picks up, and I'm like, you know what, I just don't want to dedicate myself to 200-300 pages of being bored. And I know that there's loads and loads of books, like she's done lots of little trilogies that then link up together to make this massive series, but I just don't want to sit through so many pages before I actually get an investment return on this. Like, not a fan. Isn't it a shame, because it has all the things that I would normally love about a fantasy book. We're following Fitz. He's been kind of left by his parents because he is a bastard. That puts him in this really unique position of being part royalty, but because he's a bastard, he's not actually seen as royal. And so he's then kind of taken on to become an assassin's apprentice. It's interesting. It's like, it's got politics, it's got magic. We're following this one person as he's growing up. This should be amazing. No, skipping a miss for me. Then we have Pride, Prejudice and Zombies. Obviously Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, but it's been edited by Seth Graham Smith, and I did not like this. It's just frustrating that you have the original Pride and Prejudice story lifted and plopped into this, but cut up to then have zombies added in, and I just feel like it missed out all the points of Pride and Prejudice that's good. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this one. This was actually came out ages ago. They were doing all of these quirk classics where they took all of these classics and were doing these kind of funny horror twist to them, but I don't think they took off that well because I haven't really seen them since. And yeah, I just think, you know what, the actual original, much better. Although I will say, if you're just getting into classics and you're not sure but you are a horror reader, then maybe something like this would be a good introduction to it, but in all honesty, I would recommend just starting off with horror classics then. Like, just, again, a swing and a miss. Hence why these books are being unhauled, like the majority of them are swing and a miss. Aha, there we go, Damn Fair by Barbara and J.C. Hendy. That's the first book in the series that I was talking about. We're following Megiri, who is half vampire, half human, hence Damn Fair, and Lucille, who's half elf, half human, but they spend their time conning different villages into vanquishing vampires, but they don't actually believe in vampires. They just think Megiri's full human, until of course it turns out that there are vampires, and well, things go wrong. Again, this should be the sort of thing that I would like, but there was nothing about the writing that made me go, oh, that's amazing, and I'm so much more interested in the writing of a book than the plot line. And then we have the next two that I've got in that series. So you've got Thief of Lies and Sister of the Dead. Thief of Lies is the one that I DNF'd because it was feeling exactly the same as the first book, and I was like, you know what, I just cannot be bothered to basically reread the first book with just a little bit of advancement in the plot. The fact that the plot wasn't good and I wasn't gelling with the writing, I'm good. I'm not going to carry on with this series. I still have not read Sister of the Dead or the other one in this, and I was meaning to, but it just did not hold up, which is a shame because I had been thinking about that series for a while and remember looking back and being like, oh, it'd be good to carry on with that series, but then when I actually get around to reading it, I'm like, you know what, maybe it's just better in the past. Then we have my biggest disappointment of the year so far, and that's The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. This is one that I had such high hopes for because it is a Trojan War retelling, but from Queen Boresia's perspective, who is somebody that you don't even hear much of a mention of in the Iliad. You literally get a couple lines and that's it. And it's a shame because she's this amazing woman that's been taken from her home, taken by Achilles as his prize of war, and she never gets noticed. So it was great to have a whole book from her perspective. I was like, perfect. However, the writing style, are you kidding me? Like, there's so much that goes in it, or swearing, and I'm like, what are you doing? You have the setting of that time period. You're setting that setting. It's not a modern day retelling. You've done an actual historical retelling of this, but you've decided to put modern language and slang and that in it. No, took me straight out of it. I couldn't enjoy it because of that, and it's such a shame. It could just be just a me thing, but I really was so disappointed, and it's made me not want to pick up any of her other books because that sort of language to me makes sense if it's in a modern setting, but if you're in a historical setting, which is what I prefer, the language should be different, and it just wasn't. Then we have a book that I actually really did enjoy. I just don't think I'm ever going to continue on with it or reread it, and that's These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This is sapphic witches murder mystery. It's got everything. It's really good. Again, it's YA. I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. I'm actually going to see if my sister would like it because I think she would like this one. I just don't want to be holding on to books that I know I'm not going to reread again when other people could be enjoying them, especially because all of these books I either offer to, say, like my sister, or if she doesn't want them, then they go to charity shops. Like, they're not something that I want to hold on to when other people could have that chance who just haven't discovered it. But this was good fun. We are following our main character who has had a nasty breakup before this book took place, but it has an impact on the rest of the book. She is also a witch, and she's dealing with the fact that in the modern day, how do they deal with that, especially because they're not meant to show that they are witches. We are set in Salem. Like, this is perfect October reading. Yeah, it's just a shame that I just don't think I'm going to reread it, but that's fine. I think my sister will like this one. Then we have some manga, and that's Happiness Volume 1. I didn't like this one. I mentioned this in my... Nope, I can't remember when I mentioned it, but I just didn't like this one. I found it really boring. It's about this boy who gets bitten by a vampire, and I thought it'd be more interesting because I like Tokyo Ghoul, and that's more like ghouls, zombies sort of things. So I thought, it'd be great to have a similar one, but with vampires. No, thank you. I don't like the actual art style, which is a shame because the front cover, gorgeous. Inside, not so keen. And there's a lot of scenes where it's like, because you're following this horny teenage boy, you must have those sort of scenes that come with it. And I'm like, you don't need to have that in there. So yeah, not for me. Especially like when it's all depicted in artwork, it's just a bit like, ew. And then we have another classic book, and I debated not getting rid of this one. However, I know I'm not going to reread it, and that is Classic Tales of Detection and Adventure by Edgar Allan Poe. Unfortunately, I just didn't gel with this. I liked the first short story. There's 5 short stories. I liked that because Edgar Allan Poe is arguably the person that kind of inspired Sherlock Holmes and just our murder mysteries in general from when he did it to now, which is amazing, and I want to keep it for that, but also I don't feel like that's a reason to keep this book because I'm never going to reread it. It just didn't work for me. So as I said, that first short story, loved it. You're following Dupin. He's basically a French version of Sherlock Holmes. I keep doing it that way round because I've read Sherlock Holmes first. Sherlock Holmes is the more widely known one in what I can see, like there's more TV shows and all of that about it. Dupin kind of has been lost to history a little bit, but I did enjoy that first story. However, the rest of it kind of went on and I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the theatrics that they did. There was no respect towards the dead. There was just so many things that I just didn't like, and I was just like, you know what, as much as I like the writing style, I don't like what you've written, if that makes sense. Okay, last two. We have The Magician's Apprentice by Trudy Canavan. I rebought it from a charity shop thinking that it would be really nice to reread this series. But again, I'm just out of this sort of fantasy at the minute, and I just think it's going to sit on my shelves for ages. Do I want to keep a book that would just be a reread for me? Or do I want to read all the new books that I've been getting and exploring all these different worlds? It's going to be the second option. This is good though, and I do recommend for people if you are interested in fantasy. We're following our character Tessia, and she uses magic accidentally, and as a result she gets taken into this magician's guild, and things kind of grow on from there where she's learning about magic and stuff. Like, it was really nice to have it from a female main character's point of view instead of male, because that tends to be what I find, especially in adult fantasy. YA fantasy tends to be more female main character, but adult fantasy tends to be more male main character. Anyway, Trudy Canavan again is another great from the fantasy world. I do think she gets overlooked a little bit by other authors. Again, I think that's more because of the fact that, like Robin Hobb is a female, but a lot of people will think that she's male. The reason why she went for that Robin Hobb name is because of the fact that men would think that a male had written it, and so they'll be more inclined to buy it. I also think like Trudy Canavan kind of fell prey to that because it is a more, obviously it's a female name, and so less people are going to be more inclined to pick it up. It's weird that it works like that, but in adult fantasy it seems to be a more male dominated author environment, and as a result female authors in the adult fantasy world do tend to get overlooked. Because this is backlisted, again, it's a shame because I feel like it's missed its spotlight, but it is a good series. It's just one that I've already read and I don't particularly want to reread. And then the final book is Magical Girl Apocalypse, which is another manga, and this is one that I read in my 24-hour readathon and I just didn't enjoy at all. It was just mindless horror, violence, gore scenes, very little plot. Think this would actually work for a TV series. Weirdly enough, I like that in a TV series like Alice in Borderlands. That was fun. To read it, no. Don't ask me why it works like that, it just does. But yeah, it kind of reminded me a bit like that. We've kind of got this dystopian type setting that's happening. There's been this massive event where all these weird magical girls are coming in and they're just killing everybody. Very unusual, but just not what I want to carry on reading. It's a shame though, because look at that cover. I say that every time, but yeah. So there we go, those are all the books. I don't know how many we've got here actually, hang on. 20 books we're getting rid of. Now, I would actually love to do that sort of style of video where people go through their shelves and then be like, oh, maybe I'll get rid of this one. Unfortunately, my shelves are just done in a really awkward position, so I can't easily film and show you as I go through the shelves. Like, this is fine, you can't see the bottom ones, and I can only get to half the shelves, like, easily. And the same by the ones by my bed. My bed covers some of the shelves, so it's really awkward. Plus, I actually read a book, and then if I go, oh, you know what, I wasn't that keen on that, I have a shelf at the very bottom of one of my bookshelves that I use just for books that I'm going to unhaul, and when it gets to a certain size, we do one of these videos. Hopefully, I'd love it eventually when I move to be able to do an actual let's go through my bookshelves and see what books I'm keeping, but for now, this is the sort of unhaul video we've got going, which I don't think I needed to say, but that was a ramble anyway. But okay, right, let's see what emoji are we going to do today. Is there a cleaning one? There is. You've got a broom or a sponge. We'll do that because I always feel like an unhaul is like cleansing my book space and just cleaning out all the books that weren't that good. So that is what I'm going to do. So yeah, so a cleaning emoji, either the sponge or a broom. So I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna stop. So thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to give it that thumbs up, subscribe, comment to let me know that you're here. Social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next one.